Most actors leave their characters at the studio door, but Anthony Jennings decided to bring his work home and into his private messages. In 2024, the rising star of Philippine cinema didn't just create on-screen chemistry. He ignited a digital wildfire that threatened to incinerate his pristine reputation. When leaked screenshots exposed a world of baby kisses, the industry watched in awe as he attempted the most audacious performance of his life. Rebranding Infidelity as professional dedication welcomed to society noir before the public decided whether to applaud his method or cancel his career. How did a promising leading man convince himself that a digital affair was simply a byproduct of his craft? Imagine being caught red-handed with thousands of witnesses, only look the world in the eye and claim you weren't cheating. You were just practicing. Imagine the sheer, unadulterated ego required to suggest that your personal moral failures are actually a sacrifice on the altar of cinematic excellence. Anthony Jennings didn't just cross a line. He tried to erase it entirely using a script as his eraser. From the stinging betrayal of Jamila Obispo's viral revelations to the clinical defense of a professional connection with Maris Racal, this is a forensic look at the evolution of the celebrity lie. Stay with us as we dissect the baby kisses scandal, a modern tragedy where the actor forgot where the scene ended and the cold reality of the digital footprint began. Before the phrase baby kisses became a stinging meme across Philippine social media, Anthony Jennings was the embodiment of the Manila version of the Hollywood dream. He possessed the looks of a god, the composure of an A-list star in the making, and most importantly, a picture-perfect love story with Jamila Obispo. In the world of entertainment, image is the most valuable currency. Anthony invested heavily in this. The audience loved him not just for his acting skills and hit dramas, but for his loyalty in a long-term relationship with a non-showbiz partner. It was a safe zone that set him apart from the typical playboys of the industry. But look at the nature of fame. It is a drug that makes one believe they are above the rules. As Anthony's career skyrocketed alongside the success of the Snoop and Irene love team with Maris Racal, the boundary between fiction and reality began to fracture. Psychologists call this over-identification with a role, but in our world, it has a raw name: temptation. Anthony began to believe that to keep millions of fans invested in an on-screen romance, he needed to nurture it off-screen, even if it meant betraying the woman who stood by him since he was a nobody. Betrayal in the 4.0 era no longer lives in handwritten letters or clandestine hotel meetings. It lives in bits of data, in the blue bubbles of iMessage, and hidden Instagram notifications. In May 2024, the nuclear bomb named Jamila Obispo went off. Jamila didn't choose silence to protect her boyfriend's career. She chose exposure, using the sharpest weapon available: screenshots. The messages between Anthony and another woman, alleged to be Maris Racal, weren't just professional exchanges. The term baby kisses emerged as a symbol of crossing the line. It wasn't the language of colleagues discussing a script. It was a language of possession and desire, because it sounds innocent yet carries the deepest betrayal. It is how cheaters create a private world, a secret code right behind their partner's back. When these images went viral, Anthony Jennings faced two choices: confess and apologize, or find a grand excuse. He chose the most dangerous one: method acting. To understand why the method acting defense is so absurd, we must look at the history of the craft. Legends like Daniel Day-Lewis might torture himself for a role, but they never use it to justify texting baby kisses to a co-star while having a girlfriend. In Anthony's case, method acting wasn't technique. It was a defensive PR strategy. By labeling infidelity as work, he hoped to neutralize the public's moral judgment. If I do it for the film, I'm dedicated. If I do it for lust, I'm a traitor. But the 2024 audience isn't easily fooled. They see the difference between a supervised kiss on set and private midnight texts. The silence from Maris Racal and the vague statements from management only added to the feeling of a scripted play designed to save an endorsement deal or a future movie project. In this world, the truth usually takes a back seat to profit. The moment those screenshots hit the servers, the good guy mask didn't just slip, it shattered into a million digital fragments. In the high-stakes theater of celebrity, an actor's greatest fear isn't a bad review, it's a leaked receipt. For Anthony Jennings, the receipts were printed in the ink of baby kisses and sent with the arrogance of a man who thought he had successfully hacked the system of of modern morality. Welcome to the second act of a tragedy where the protagonist mistakes a temporary spotlight for permanent immunity. When Jamila Obispo hit the post button, she wasn't just exposing a cheating boyfriend. She was initiating a forensic audit of a celebrity's soul. Suddenly, every interview Anthony had ever given about loyalty and hard work felt like a punchline to a very dark joke. Imagine the psychological gymnastics required to maintain a double life, while your face is plastered on billboards across the country. Every public appearance becomes a tightrope walk over a pit of your own lies. For months, Anthony had been playing two roles, the devoted partner to Jamila and the simmering love interest to the public. But the problem with playing two characters is that eventually, the lines get crossed, the cues are missed, and the audience starts to notice the sweat on the performer's brow. The baby kisses leaked messages weren't just evidence of a romantic transgression. They were a roadmap of a hostile psychological takeover. They revealed a man who had become so intoxicated by his own rising fame that he believed he could redefine the very nature of intimacy. In his mind, those messages were likely just building chemistry, a necessary professional investment to the rest of the world. They were the cold, hard proof of a calculated betrayal. This is where the toxic catalyst enters the frame. In the Philippine entertainment industry, the love team culture is a multi-billion peso machine. It's a system that thrives on blurred lines. It demands that actors pretend to be in love to sell tickets. And for a man like Anthony, the temptation to turn that pretense into a reality was too great to resist. The industry didn't just watch him fall. It provided the velvet-lined stairs for him to walk down. But as the scandal intensified, the machine began to distance itself. When the baby kisses meme went viral, the corporate vultures started circling. Brands don't care about your method acting or your creative process. They care about their bottom line. A leading man who is associated with a messy, public infidelity becomes a liability faster than a movie can flop. Anthony wasn't just losing his girlfriend. He was losing his marketability. He tried to lean into the silence, the classic PR move of wait for it to blow over. But in 2024, the internet has no expiration date. The baby kisses phrase became a digital brand, a mocking shorthand for every man who tries to use his career as a shield for his character flaws. Every time he posts a photo, every time he promoted a project, the comments section was a graveyard of baby kisses, emojis. Imagine the suffocating pressure of being canceled in real time. It's not a sudden death. It's a slow, agonizing erosion of influence. Anthony watched as his follower counts fluctuated, and his peers stayed silent, afraid that his professional contagion might spread to them. Even Maris Racal, the other half of the perceived equation, had to navigate a minefield of public perception, forced to maintain a distance that felt both strategic and suspicious. The freefall had begun. Anthony's attempt to justify the messages as work-related was the final nail in the coffin of his credibility. It was a defense so transparently desperate that it invited even more ridicule. It's a fascinating look at the elite ego, the belief that if you are talented enough or handsome enough, the public will eventually forgive you for treating people like disposable props in your own personal drama. But Jamila Obispo was no prop. By reclaiming the narrative, she stripped Anthony of his most precious asset, the ability to control how he was seen. She proved that in the age of society noir, the truth doesn't need a publicist. It just needs a stable internet connection. As the curtain falls on part 2, Anthony Jennings finds himself in the coldest place a celebrity can be, standing in the middle of the stage, under a spotlight, with an audience that is no longer cheering but laughing. The question was no longer whether he was a good actor. The question was whether there was anything left of the man once the cameras stopped rolling. Stay with us as we move into the final act, the forensic autopsy of a reputation, and the desperate surgical attempt to rebuild a career from the ashes of a baby kiss. In the wreckage of a digital scandal, the first thing to die is the truth, and the second is the publicist's dignity. As Anthony Jennings stood amidst the ruins of his good guy persona, the rebranding machine began its frantic, surgical attempt at resuscitation. This is the moment where the celebrity shifts from perpetrator to philosopher, suddenly discovering deep, introspective wisdom just as the endorsement deals begin to evaporate. Welcome to the final act of Society Noir, where we examine the desperate anatomy of a comeback. In the Philippine entertainment industry, silence is often treated as a strategic sanctuary. But for Anthony, the silence was screaming. Every baby kiss comment was a reminder that in the eyes of the digital jury, he wasn't just a man who made a mistake. He was a man who got caught playing a game he wasn't smart enough to win. Imagine the sheer, unadulterated hubris of attempting to pivot back to a leading man status while the stench of betrayal still lingers in the air. The industry tried its best to shield him, offering the usual excuses of youthful indiscretion and the pressures of fame. But the public isn't as naive as the studio executives hope. They saw the calculated nature of the messages, the clinical way he navigated his double life. And they realized that the character they loved on screen was merely a mask for a much more cynical reality. The forensic autopsy of his reputation reveals a fatal wound, the loss of trust, in the love team economy. Trust is the only currency that matters. When Anthony devalued that currency, he didn't just hurt Jamila, he insulted the intelligence of his entire fan base. He expected them to keep buying the fantasy while he was busy living a messy, backstage reality. It was a hostile takeover of the audience's emotions, and the audience responded with a brutal, collective unfollow. And then came the rebranding. Suddenly, the social media feeds were filled with images of work-focused Anthony. There were photos of him reading scripts, looking pensive on set, and engaging in vague, humanitarian gestures. It's a classic Robert Greene maneuver. Recreate yourself. But the problem with recreating yourself on a foundation of lies is that the cracks always reappear. You can't spray paint over a rotting structure and call a mansion. The baby kiss's legacy isn't just a meme. It's a permanent stain on a professional record. It serves as a cautionary tale for every rising star who thinks their talent grants them a moral hall pass. The digital era has turned every fan into a private investigator and every leaked message into a career-ending subpoena. Anthony Jennings learned the hard way that when you live by the flashbulb, you die by the screenshot. As we close the file on this specific tragedy, we must look at the survivors. Jamila Obispo walked away with her dignity intact and her platform enlarged, proving that truth is the ultimate leverage. Anthony, on the other hand, remains in a state of professional purgatory, a man who has the fame he desired, but none of the respect that makes it worth having. He is a ghost haunting his own career, a cautionary tale whispered in the corridors of talent agencies. This wasn't just a breakup. It was a systemic failure of a celebrity's ego. It was a moment when a rising star flew too close to the silver sun of his own hype and watched his wax wings melt under the heat of public scrutiny. The industry will move on, of course. It will find a new good guy, new leading man, and a new set of receipts to leak. Because in the world of the elite, the show must go on, even if the leading man is bleeding out on the stage. Ultimately, the story of Anthony Jennings is a dark comedy with a very expensive punchline. It's a reminder that power doesn't just corrupt, it blinds. It makes you believe that you are the author of the rules until the moment the world decides to stop reading your book. From the crowded sheets of hidden bacchanals to the sterile silence of a canceled contract, this is the forensic reality of fame. Stay with us as we continue to peel back the velvet curtains of the world's most opulent tragedies. Because in society noir, the only thing more dangerous than being forgotten is being remembered for the wrong reasons. The autopsy is complete. The case is closed. But the whispers are just beginning.